think about this really quick. When you sample, what's your invitation? To try it, right? So you say you're gonna follow up, and when you follow up and they have a good experience, what's your invitation? Class. To come to a class. And then you follow up with them, and when they come to the class, what is your invitation?
Order.
To get a wellness consult and to host a class, right? When you go to the wellness consult, now my friends, what is your invitation? What comes next? Where do you lead them after that? To continuing ed. You lead them to continuing education. In that wellness consult, besides getting them on loyalty rewards, your next most important thing is to make sure that they sign up for continuing ed. Now I'm going to tell you the story about continuing ed. The owners called me up at the very beginning of the business, and they said, Allyse, we want you to get on a plane and we want you to fly to Taiwan. There's some brothers there in Taiwan. They're called the Shungs, and they're incredible with products. And we just want you to teach them a little bit about the business, how you do business. And I was like, okay, I wanted a Taiwanese leg anyway. So I thought when I get there, I'd talk to some people and I'd start my own organization in Taiwan, which I did. And why did you laugh at that? So anyway, I get to Taiwan and I'm in a classroom probably maybe a little bit more than half the size of this stage, maybe the full stage. And I walk in there and there's like 100 little Chinese people stuffed into this classroom, so excited. Like, I had no idea who it was, but someone was in the front and he was like, you know, xie xie ni hao ma. By the way, that is Chinese. I do know those. But he was like, ni hao ma, all this. Super excited, they're jumping up and down. Like, he has all these slides. Everybody is really interactive, and I'm sitting there going, what the heck is going on? And by the way, the slides are like 100 times more busy than our slides. Have you ever been to Taiwan? Like, their billboards, you're like, how do I even follow a billboard, you know? All these slides going on, and I didn't know what was happening. So I listened the entire presentation, didn't understand anything. And then what happened was the strangest thing I'd ever seen. And people, after the presentation was over, started to line up in kind of a single file. And they would file their way like through the room like this and then out and then into the hall. And they lined up and they would walk up to the presenter, who I found out later was David Chung, and present to him this little card. And then he would do something. I'm not sure if he had a stamp or initial it. And the next person. And I literally thought, this is a cult. What is going on, right? One by one, every single person walked through, and they walked up to him, and the next person. I'm like, oh my goodness. So then, at the end of the class, I walk up to him, he said, are you Allyse? I'm like, yeah, hi David. And I'm like, what happened? What was this? And there's probably, honestly, about maybe 100 people in the room, 80, maybe 100. And he goes, oh, this is our continuing education class. I'm like, okay, at the time, no one in America, nobody knew about it. Nobody did continuing education. I didn't even know what it was. I said, what is continuing education? And he goes, oh, well, let me tell you what we do in Taiwan. And he said, see this little card right here? On the front of the card are 8 classes. And they are the most basic things we think that people should know about the products so that they can completely change their life and stay on essential oils forever, for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And he goes, on the back of the card are 4 business classes. So they can basically learn about the business and start doing the business. And at that moment, I sheepishly thought to myself, I'm not teaching this guy anything about business. Like, I don't even know why I'm here. So he's explaining this to me, and then he says this. I thought it was a little outlandish, but they totally got away with it in China. When we brought it back to the US, we toned it down, and he said, what we do at the end of what is now called like a wellness consult, right? But it was different back then. What we do at the end is we literally give them this card. and we say to them, because you've enrolled in doTERRA, because you purchased a kit, you now have they called it $1,000. You have $1,000 of free essential oil training. And I look at him, I'm like, $1,000? He's like, yeah, that's what we think it represents. It's 8 one-hour classes of product, fabulous classes, and 4 one-hour classes of business. And so I'm like, okay. And then he said every time somebody comes to one of these classes, they get it marked off by the instructor. And if they get 8 classes marked off for product, well, we actually give them a diffuser. Now remember, they're Taiwanese, so they bring in their own diffusers from China, right? Cheaper. So we give everyone, which actually I figured that out myself. I'm like, if he can bring in stuff from China, so can I. I'm like, I'll get my own diffusers. Anyway, so just was a little bit harder for me because I didn't have the Chinese connections for diffusers that he did. It took me a little while. But anyway, tell me where I was at, Steve. No, not 1. I'm not on 1 or 2, Steve. I'm like in my conversation. Steve.
$1,000.
Alfonso, help me. Where are you? Alfonso. Help me. $1,000. Thank you, Alfonso. All right. So, he's like, I only have 1 job. That's all I have. That's my job. I do not think other than 1 or 2. But I do. Okay. $1,000, okay? Now, if they pass off all of their 8 classes, then they get this certificate that says essential oil expert. And I'm like, really? And he's like, oh no, you have no idea. They hang this certificate on their wall next to, this is where I graduated, this is where I went to college, and this is my essential oil expert. I'm like, you just make that thing up? He's like, yeah. I'm like, and it feels legit to them? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I could totally do that too. So he has this, and then he said this, we have women that will take the bullet train every single week from all parts of Taiwan, because at first it just started right in Taipei, right? And they go into the city to go to these classes. At the end of each class, they talked about LRP and how to purchase all the product that they just talked about on LRP. They show them how to do it, they show them how to change it, and every week they got exposed to different products. Let me tell you what he taught me. It was this. Our goal for continuing education is that we expose enough people to the product, exactly opposite. We expose people to enough products that by the end of continuing education, they have 4 or 5 products they can't live without. They are going to buy them for the rest of their lives. That is our goal, okay? Yeah, don't clap for me, clap for David Chung, right? Woo! I was just there that day. So, I know mine 4 or 5 products. They're gonna be totally different than yours. One of mine, of course it's lifelong vitality for me. Of course it's adaptive for my girl. Of course it's, deep loose and things like that. But one of mine is who is in love with Europalm? Oh my gosh, I can't live without it now. I forgot it in Prague and I've been here for a while. I'm like, what is happening to my face? Somebody go get me. Okay, I could go down and I think I have enough money. I could purchase some, right? Anyway, so it's a thought I just had right then. So, anyway, so every single person has different 4 or 5 things, and unless we're exposed to a lot of things, we don't know what they are, right? So I'm gonna liken this to being on the 2-yard line of the football field. You've driven this ball all the way down to the 2-yard line, and right at the 2-yard line, you say, you know what? We're done. We're going home. We forfeit. You're at the 2-yard line. No one does that. This is where you are right before a wellness or at a wellness consult. At the wellness consult, you're at the 2-yard line. You've sampled, you've followed up, You've gotten them through the class. You've given a killer class. You had them schedule a wellness consult. They bought a kit. They possibly even signed up to host a class. But you don't just go into the end zone. You've done all this work. You just need to go into the end zone. You need to actually help them to have this become a lifestyle. And it's at the continuing education classes that this happens. And of course, at every single continuing education class at the end, you talk about LRP. And then, my friends, this is what he said. The first hour is continuing education. We're talking live continuing education classes. You can do them online too, but they are not magical like life. The second hour, right after the first hour, is what? Business. Business. When does the food come out, people? At the business. Never at the product. How many times would product people just stay for the business? Many times. That is 8 more exposures to the business. It's 8 more times that you give them a chance to open the door. Do you understand? Are you doing this? No. And therefore, you don't have builders. Right? There's so many different steps here that you allow people to get involved, right? Now, why do we do business right after product? Let's talk about this. It's the same reason why we do the business intro right after a class. Why? They're already there. They are already there. You're not going to invite them back to another time. That's almost nobody shows up to that, right? I went home from Taiwan, and I literally thought to myself, I taught them nothing, but they taught me the world. It was the best trip. And I went home and I sat down with my leaders and I'm like, guess what? We are going to do continuing education. They're like, what's that? I'm like, well, let me tell you what it is. And we printed off these little cards and we started doing continuing education. It started in Utah Valley, and then it went all over Utah, and then it went to Vegas, and it went to Arizona, and it went to Hawaii, and then it went all over, right? Every single place I open up, we do continuing education classes. Every place. I got to Slovakia and saw the team there. I'm like, you guys aren't doing continuing education? They're like, no, we don't even know what it is. I'm like, how do you not know what this is? This is like the wild, wild west out here. Took us 6 months to put a continuing education course throughout everywhere. They just went presidential. When I got there 3 years ago, they were diamond. You need to have a duplicatable system to lead people along the way, right? We have 2 paths. We have a product path and we have a business path, okay? Now, question for you. 85% of your check comes from which? The product path. 85% of the people in your downline just signed up with doTERRA just to purchase products. So if you don't have a distinct path for them to lead them down the road so they'll buy product for the rest of their lives, you are literally neglecting 85% of your check. Are we clear? We have a product path and we have a business path. And they intermingle many, many times. If you don't, okay, I'm just gonna ask, how many of you right now have a very clear continuing education process? We need to get better, do we not?
Yes.
Now, I'm gonna tell you about my Malaysian team. In Malaysia, they're incredible at copying, but making it better. So I go to Malaysia. Remember I told you when I was going over there that one time they said they're gonna have 300 people at the essential oil event, or the essential oil class. I'm like, whoa, what? And they were like, don't worry, they have 100 wellness advocates there too, we're gonna close them all. Well, anyway, after that event, and my Malaysia team, just so you know, they signed up before doTERRA was opened. They signed up before they were paying commissions to people. They signed up before they were delivering product to Malaysia. My leader, total pioneer, put every order on her own credit card, figured out how to pay everyone commissions based on our compensation schedule, or it's not a schedule, what is it? Thank you. And then drove every single month to Singapore, picked up all of the products, delivered it to everyone else, and went blue diamond before they even opened up Blue Diamond before they even opened up. She was a rock star, right? Unbelievable work, but she followed instruction and she laid out this duplication model like I've never seen done. Perfectly laid out, didn't tweak anything, didn't change anything, everything was laid out perfect. Except for one point, she made better. So I get to this event, and I'm teaching the essential oil class, and earlier, she had me sign all these, a huge stack of graduation certificates. I'm like, okay, signing them. She's like, after the event is over, people are all signing up. She goes, Allyse, we want you to stay on the stage for just a minute because we're actually having a graduation ceremony. I'm like, we're doing what? She's like, we're having a graduation celebration for continuing education. I'm like, okay. I'd never ever heard of this before. So I'm standing up on stage and they put the loudest Malaysian music on. And then these ladies were seriously on the side and some men dressed up in beautiful Malaysian outfits. Like, you guys, they look like they were going to prom. And I'm standing there and they would read off, this is like, I'm thinking, okay, go back to like college graduation. Hold on just a second, I didn't graduate from college. Go back to high school graduation. How did this look like, right? And they would read off a name. Somebody would walk up. I'm standing there. I would like hand them their certificate. They took a picture with me. And then somebody from behind would hand me this wrapped box. It was a diffuser they got from China. And I would give them the gift. Next name. Picture. Box. Picture. Over and over and over and over again. Forever. They like had tons of people graduating. They were like so excited. That wasn't the coolest part. The coolest part was right after. Right after the class, I walked down and this lady comes up to me and she goes, Allyse, I promised myself that I would be a graduate when you came. But my very last class to check off, my mom got sick and got put in the hospital. I had to go be with her and I couldn't do the class. And she looks at me like she was taking this so seriously. She looks at me and she goes, I promise you, Allyse, the next time you come to Malaysia, I will be a graduate. So I didn't know how to handle it. I just look at her, I'm like, you better be. I'm like, I'm going along with this, right? You better be. That same team, in just a couple of years, went double diamond. They will be the first people that outrank me. Hands down, for sure, they will be the first people that outrank me in the company. They could take a system and not change it and get their leaders behind it and make it better than I've made it. They think of things I didn't think of and they beat that drum and they don't turn to the right, to the left, they put their head in the sand and they do it year after year after year and have the same exact success. That's what you can do. That is what you can do, right? So one of my teams, I think, Jenny, are you here? I haven't even seen you. Jenny Oates? Or is she baby? She's not here. She doesn't like me anymore. Okay. Anyway, I was going to